I'm so glad you found this moment tonight. Your mind has been processing all day, every decision, every conversation, every flicker of light and sound that asked for your attention. And without you even noticing, it has been carrying that weight. What you're about to discover is how silence works inside the brain like nothing else can, and why the quietest moments of your life may also be the most healing ones. Welcome to Sleepy Science Facts. Right now, wherever you are, perhaps lying still, the world outside beginning to soften, your breathing is already finding its own quiet rhythm. Let this be your moment of arrival. We'll explore together, through a gentle collection of psychology facts, the hidden power of silence. From the very first shift in your brain when noise falls away, to the way stillness reaches deep into memory, emotion, and restoration. This is a quiet journey, meant to be led in slowly. If this space brings you peace, a soft subscribe, or a gentle, helps other tired minds find their way here too. One peaceful night, one sleepy soul at a time. Your rest inspires this sanctuary, so settle in completely. Feel your jaw unclench, your breath deepen without effort. Let these words drift past you like clouds. No need to hold them. Sense that soothing heaviness beginning to settle in your limbs, your eyelids, the space behind your eyes. Your awareness slowly dimming, like a light being turned down, until only calm remains. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Breathe slowly. You are floating now, safe, untroubled, exactly where you need to be. And so we begin. Your brain never truly stops listening. Even now, as you lie still and the room grows quiet, your auditory cortex continues its quiet watch, scanning for safety, distinguishing the hum of the house from anything that might need your attention. It's an ancient system, built over millennia, when the snap of a branch or the shift of wind could mean everything. In our modern world, filled with constant sound, that ancient vigilance rarely gets to rest. But when it finally does, when silence arrives, something remarkable happens inside you. Sound is measured in decibels. A quiet room sits around 30 decibels. Normal conversation, about 60. City traffic can climb above 85. The World Health Organization now recognizes environmental noise as one of the greatest health risks in modern life. Chronic exposure, even to sounds we barely notice, has been linked to elevated stress hormones, disrupted sleep, and measurable effects on the heart and mind. The damage happens slowly, quietly, like water shaping stone. But the opposite of noise is not simply absence. True silence, in the scientific sense, is rare. The quietest place on earth is an anechoic chamber, where sound drops below -9 decibels. People who enter often hear their own heartbeat, their breath, the faint hum of their nervous system. It can feel unsettling at first. Yet when they step back into ordinary quiet, not perfect silence, but relative quiet, the brain shows something unmistakable relief. In 2006, researchers studying music and relaxation noticed something unexpected. They had expected the calmest music to produce the deepest relaxation. But the greatest drops in heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing occurred during the silent pauses between songs. Silence, it turned out, wasn't passive. It was something the brain actively received and used. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is central to this story. In small doses, it sharpens us. But when noise keeps it elevated, hour after hour, night after night, its effects reverse. Sustained cortisol suppresses immunity, clouds memory, disrupts sleep, and feeds anxiety. Quiet environments have been shown to lower cortisol within minutes. The shift is measurable. It's real. Your autonomic nervous system runs on a delicate balance. Sympathetic mode, alert, reactive, stressed. Parasympathetic mode, rest, digest, restore. Noise, especially unpredictable noise, tips the balance toward alertness, whether you're aware of it or not. Silence tips it back. The hippocampus, a small, curved structure deep in your brain, is central to memory and emotion. It's also one of the most stress-sensitive regions in the body. Chronic noise has been linked, over time, to measurable reductions in hippocampal volume. But here's the gentle truth. Silence supports its health. In a landmark 2013 study, researchers exposed adult mice to different acoustic environments, music, white noise, and silence. While some sounds increase cell growth briefly, after 2 hours of silence per day, newly formed cells continue to develop into mature neurons. The brain, it appeared, grows in a particular way in the quiet. Neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, was once thought impossible in adult brains. Now we know it happens throughout life, especially in the hippocampus, and it is exquisitely sensitive to environment. Chronic stress suppresses it, exercise promotes it, and sustained quiet, it creates the conditions where the brain can renew itself. So here, in these first facts, a picture begins to form. Silence is not emptiness. It is a physiological state, one in which the brain shifts from vigilance to restoration, from stress to ease, from fragmentation to integration. Blood pressure falls, heart rate steadies, the immune system settles, and the hippocampus, your brain's memory center, is given room to breathe and even to grow. These aren't vague ideas. They are documented, replicated findings from research institutions around the world. The brain heals in the quiet, and tonight, as you lie here in your own version of stillness, that healing may already be quietly, gently beginning. Let's pause for a moment. Notice your body, the weight of it against the surface beneath you, the breath moving in and out without instruction. Your heart, beating steadily, has never once asked for your help. You are a whole ecosystem, trillions of cells, each doing its work in silence. And in this stillness, everything begins to settle. Now we continue. The default mode network, a set of interconnected brain regions, becomes most active when you're not focused on external tasks. It's the network of mind-wandering, self-reflection, and meaning-making. For years, scientists thought of it as the brain idling. Now we know it does some of its most important work in quiet, weaving together memory, emotion, and the story of who you are. But constant noise, constant input, suppresses this network. When your attention is pulled outward all day, inward processing never fully activates. Silence restores the conditions for the DMN to do its work. Quiet isn't emptiness. It's the architecture where the mind builds its most meaningful structures. Cognitive load is the total mental effort being used at any moment. Your working memory has a limited capacity. When it's overloaded by noise, interruptions, information, decision-making slows, creativity dims, and emotional regulation weakens. Silence reduces cognitive load. Freed from processing unwanted input, your brain redirects energy toward what matters most. Children are especially sensitive to this. Studies in schools near airports, railways, and highways consistently show that chronic noise exposure impairs reading, attention, and memory in developing minds. Not because children find the noise distracting, but because their stress systems are quietly activated all day. The same is true for sleep. Noise that doesn't wake, you can still fragment deep sleep and REM sleep, reduce nighttime cortisol recovery, and leave you feeling unrest without knowing why. The World Health Organization recommends nighttime noise below 45 decibels for restorative sleep. Yet in most cities, nighttime noise exceeds this threshold. The gap between what our brains need and what we experience is not small. Across a lifetime, it becomes a meaningful physiological burden. One of the most interesting discoveries is what happens in the auditory cortex during silence. It doesn't simply shut down. Instead, it shifts into a different mode, processing recently heard sounds, integrating them with stored memories, making sense of the auditory landscape. Silence is not an off switch. It is a processing mode. Tinnitus, the perception of sound without an external source, affects about 15% of adults. It's a paradox, the brain generating its own noise in the absence of sound. And it reminds us that our auditory system, like all of us, needs silence to stay healthy. Creativity, too, depends on quiet. Studies of open-plan offices found that constant ambient noise suppresses creative thinking. The most productive states for creativity require a particular kind of mental quiet, freedom from interruption, from social monitoring, from the low-level vigilance that background noise sustains. Artists and scientists have always known this intuitively. Now the data confirms. The mind creates most freely when the environment falls quiet enough to stop demanding its attention. Mindfulness meditation, one of the most researched psychological practices of our time, is essentially the deliberate cultivation of inner quiet. Neuroimaging shows that experienced meditators develop structural changes in brain regions associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness, changes that overlap meaningfully with what silence itself produces. The Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, involves quiet, immersive time among trees. Research shows measurable benefits: lower cortisol, reduced blood pressure, improved immune markers, reduced anxiety. While forests offer many sensory inputs, researchers have identified acoustic quiet as one of the key active ingredients. Natural sounds, wind, water, birds, sit at frequencies the brain processes as non-threatening, allowing the vigilant system to relax. Natural acoustic environments often produce pink noise, sound that follows a fractal pattern found throughout nature. The brain recognizes this pattern as safe. Artificial noise, by contrast, tends to be irregular and unpredictable, keeping the vigilant system engaged. Natural quiet tells the brain something the modern world rarely does. Everything right now is fine. Directed attention fatigue, the depletion of our capacity for focused attention, is restored by quiet. Urban environments accelerate this depletion. Natural and quiet environments provide what psychologists call soft fascination, gentle engagement that holds attention without effort, allowing the mind to recover. Even brief exposure to quiet, natural settings produces measurable improvements in attention, memory, and cognitive flexibility. The amygdala, your brain's threat detector, is constantly monitoring sound for danger. Unexpected sounds activated before your conscious mind even registers them. In sustained noise, your amygdala remains in low-level vigilance. Silence releases it, and when the amygdala rests, the whole emotional body begins to soften. These first facts trace a clear thread. Silence is not nothing. It is a measurable physiological state in which the brain shifts from activation to restoration, from threat to integration, from stress to ease. Every major system, cardiovascular, immune, neuroendocrine, cognitive, moves in a beneficial direction when noise falls away. This is not metaphor. It is biology. The brain heals in silence the way the body heals in sleep. And tonight, you are giving yourself both. Let's pause again. Breathe out slowly. Appreciate, for a moment, the quiet work of your body. Heart, lungs, brain, all of it moving in silence. You are a complete ecosystem, self-balancing, already quieting with every breath. Now we continue. The vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve, connects your brain to your heart, lungs, and digestive system. It's the primary pathway of the parasympathetic nervous system. Vagal tone is one of the strongest predictors of emotional regulation and resilience. Quiet environments increase vagal tone. Silence, communicated through this ancient pathway, reaches every organ in your body. Heart rate variability, the natural variation between heartbeats, is a measure of nervous system flexibility. High variability means resilience. Low variability is linked to chronic stress and disease. Studies show that quiet environments increase heart rate variability within minutes. Your heart literally becomes more flexible in the quiet. Blood pressure responds to acoustic environments in ways that are both immediate and cumulative. Chronic noise exposure, especially during sleep, is associated with significantly increased risk of hypertension. Quiet neighborhoods offer a gentle protective effect on heart health. The silence around you is not merely pleasant. It may be protective. Mental health, too, is shaped by noise. Population studies consistently link residential noise exposure to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and psychological distress, effects that remain even after accounting for income and other factors. The burden accumulates slowly, too slowly to feel, yet real enough to measure across populations. The immune system and nervous system are deeply connected. Chronic noise stress suppresses natural killer cells, reduces antibody production, and promotes inflammation. Parasympathetic activation, reliably produced by quiet, supports immune function. When you rest in silence, your immune system rests and recovers alongside your nervous system. Even short periods of quiet produce measurable changes. Studies suggest that 20 minutes of quiet, below 50 decibels, with minimal demands, lowers cortisol and improves mood. 1 to 2 hours of quiet rest produces deeper, longer-lasting effects, allowing the prefrontal cortex to shift from task-focused mode toward the integrative mode associated with reflection and self-understanding. The brain uses the time. It is never truly idle. For some people, quiet is not merely a preference, but a physiological necessity. Those higher in introversion or sensory processing sensitivity show stronger physiological responses to noise, larger cortisol spikes, greater amygdala activation, faster cognitive fatigue. Their nervous systems reach optimal function at lower levels of stimulation. For them, silence is genuinely restorative in a way louder environments cannot be. The architecture of silence is now a growing field. Hospitals, schools, and workplaces are being redesigned around the evidence that the human brain needs more quiet than modern spaces typically provide. Hospital noise disrupts sleep, elevates pain perception, and slows recovery. New guidelines for sound levels in care environments reflect a growing understanding of what the brain needs to heal. The perception of silence varies across cultures. In some traditions, Zen, Taoism, indigenous practices, silence is understood not as absence, but as presence. The Japanese concept of ma describes a meaningful pause, a space between sounds that carries its own weight. The Finnish Jesuis is considered a social and spiritual value, not merely an acoustic condition. These cultural frameworks align with what neuroscience is discovering. Silence is not the absence of something valuable.